home to the hottest, driest place in the world, the slots of Las Vegas, aliens, if you believe, and the location for movies like No Country for Old Men, the Mojave Desert is a legendary biome that embodies the Western mythos of America. The Mojave is a vast, almost 54,000 square miles desert covering parts of Nevada, California, Arizona, and Utah. Its weather alternates between below freezing at night to up to 37 degrees Celsius during the day. This place is very special to me, as Nevada is the state where I grew up in. Evidence shows that humans have lived in the Mojave for a long time, with Paleo-Indian presence up to 15,000 years ago. The name of the Mojave comes from the indigenous community that lived there for about 5,000 years, the Mojave people. Roughly translated, it means beside the water, referring to the mighty Colorado River. At times, this name has also been taken to mean three mountains, referring to the needles of rock rising above the Colorado River. The Mojave is defined by low rainfall, with an average of less than 15 centimeters annually. Its inhabitants are specially adapted to survive in this harsh environment. The vegetation of the Mojave is sparse, made up of mostly shrubs, cacti, and other CAM-adapted plants. Though the Mojave has elevations from below sea level to almost 8,000 feet, it is widely regarded as a high desert, with most of its land situated between 2,000 and 4,000 feet. In recent history, there has been heavy urban expansion, starting with silver boom towns and ending with cities like Las Vegas. Its more isolated lands have also been used for weapons testing, including nuclear detonations. Over the next 100 years, the average daily temperature of the Mojave is anticipated to increase by up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 9 degrees Celsius. The main issue of survival in the Mojave is water. Everyone needs it, and there's never enough. Even without droughts, water is scarce in the Mojave. With climate change causing longer and more frequent droughts, the denizens of the Mojave will struggle. Already, artificial water sources like the Hoover Dam are lower than they have ever been before. Plants and animals have struggled for water, especially with the added issue of human consumption. But drought removes the oases of streams and springs they've been able to subsist on. Due to both climate stress and aggressive human expansion, available habitat in the Mojave is at an all-time low. Desertification and construction of cities is reducing land available for organisms to survive, along with the resources required for them to live. Worsening both of these problems is the issue of extreme heat. Temperature on average is increasing, but more pressing is the occurrence of heat waves. Often coinciding with drought, heat waves bring animals and plants to their knees and push them beyond their limits. Alone, any one of these problems presents issues for survival, but combined together, they will render most of the Mojave uninhabitable for almost every living organism. The Mojave is home to many unique and famous organisms, such as the Joshua tree. Joshua trees are endemic to the Mojave and can typically be found in the grasslands. They are in the yucca family and closely related to other species, such as the Spanish dagger. They rely heavily on the yucca moth for pollination and have a symbiotic relationship with them. They can live for up to hundreds of years if they survive the hardships of the desert. They are well suited to survive in the environment of the Mojave, partly because they are CAM-adapted plants, which means they close their stomata during the day and open it at night. Despite this, climate change poses a great threat to Joshua trees. Current models predict that there will be nearly no suitable environment for them in the near future. Extreme heat waves would limit their ability to photosynthesize efficiently, and severe drought will limit growth and reproductive success. Additionally, increased temperatures will cause issues between the phenology of yucca moths and Joshua trees. Like seen in the tobacco hornworms, higher temperatures change the life cycle of the moth and cause them to emerge at a different time than the Joshua trees bloom, reducing pollination success. Another famous animal of the Mojave is the bighorn sheep. There are two main subspecies present in the Mojave, the desert bighorn and its endangered high-altitude cousin, the Sierra Nevada bighorn. These sheep can weigh up to 280 pounds and live for about 12 years. Indigenous populations relied heavily upon their meat and skin to eat and make clothing. They are incredibly resilient and can go for months without visiting drinking water, just sustaining themselves on moisture from their food and small pools of rainwater. The desert bighorners can even lose up to 30% of their body weight and still survive. The main factors of their population loss have been overhunting, fierce predation, and diseases caught from domestic sheep nearby. Climate change-related temperature increase creates a better breeding ground for disease, which can cause widespread death, as it has in the past for them. Extreme heat and drought will increase the stress placed on bighorners, leading to cortisol spikes. Over time, this will weaken their immune systems and worsen the effect of disease. Sustained high cortisol levels will also worsen reproductive success and lead the big tortoise down the path of extinction. The Mojave desert tortoise is an elusive creature that spends up to 9 months out of the year in its burrow hibernating and comes out when temperatures are cool enough for it to survive, typically from September to October. These tortoises are small and only weigh about 15 pounds. They can use from 5 to up to 25 burrows per year and can share their burrows with other tortoises as well as creatures such as peccaries and rattlesnakes. This burrow sharing is vital for the survival of many other species, as it provides crucial shelter against the elements of the Mojave. Desert tortoises will live up to 80 years, but take about 13 years to reach sexual maturity. Their diet mainly consists of native herbs, grasses, and cacti. The desert tortoise is an endangered species, with the main issue for them being habitat loss from human encroachment and wildfire. While renewable energy is typically thought of as an environmental positive, construction of solar and wind farms are a huge threat for the desert tortoise. They can withstand some of the worst environmental conditions, but are defenseless against cars and off-roading vehicles that will be wrought by infrastructure, regardless of good intentions. Disease is another major threat to the Mojave desert tortoise, specifically upper respiratory tract disease, which was responsible for large population drops in the recent past. Desert tortoise sex is determined by the temperature present when they're developing their eggs. High temperatures, greater than 32 degrees, produce females, while lower ones have a gradient production of both sexes to just males. These increased temperatures and heat waves will cause a ground temperature, where the tortoises nest, to increase, possibly causing a skewed sex ratio and inhibiting reproduction. To solve these problems, we must stop climate change. But that is a deeply complex, multifaceted issue which will take far too long to solve. We can do several things to aid the symptoms of climate change while we work on tackling that issue. Periods of drought are harrowing for all organisms, but there is a relatively simple and cost-effective way to stop it. Guzzlers. You may or may not have heard of these. Essentially, they are a big tank of water in the ground covered with an apron or roof. There are many styles, but typically the roof will be slanted and made of metal. The idea is that rain and snow will gather on the roof, run off into the gutter, and the gutter leads to a tank. These tanks can hold up to 2,000 gallons of water. In times of extreme drought, these guzzlers can be refilled manually with water by us, humans. The presence of a guzzler can be the difference between life and death for a large number of different organisms. They even can increase the range of animals, as they can grab water in spots that typically have none. Another way to increase the range of animals is construction and management of wildlife corridors. The presence of corridors and green bridges over roads allows animals to safely travel from place to place. For organisms like the desert tortoise, this is very important, as roads are areas of extreme peril. Conserving plants is a little more difficult, as they themselves cannot move from place to place. But one thing we can do is called assisted migration, which, much like it sounds, is where scientists would take Joshua tree saplings and transport them to areas where the climate will better suit them in the future. To combat human encroachment and habitat loss, we must also impose regulations limiting development of all kinds of encroachment into wildlife habitats. Placing limitations on water use in cities like Las Vegas, where nearly all the water used is pumped in from surrounding areas, like the Hoover Dam, would decrease the overall stress placed on these surrounding environments, making them better for everyone. Though the Mojave and its denizens may seem stubborn and unyielding, they are in fact very vulnerable. Species like the Joshua tree, bighorn sheep, and desert tortoise have evolved to be incredibly tough, but are at high risk from human activity and climate change. As a collective, we must take action to rectify our misdeeds upon the environment and preserve this wonderful place for our future generations to enjoy.